When I close my eyes and remember everything I lived through, I still taste that bitter sting of injustice. To be excluded, as if I had never existed, as if my whole life of devotion, silence, and sacrifice meant nothing. That's how my own siblings treated me the day they opened the inheritance, and I, the daughter who took care of my father the most, sat there, humiliated, trying to swallow the pain. Have you ever imagined being erased by your own family, cut out of your father's inheritance, humiliated by your brothers, and yet still keeping in silence a truth powerful enough to change everything? Stay with me until the end and prepare your heart, because this twist will surprise you. And if you enjoy powerful stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next ones. But before that day of humiliation, we need to go back. You need to know my story. I was born in a simple wooden house that creaked with the wind. My mother used to say poverty was harsh, but shame was worse, so she taught us to keep our heads high, even when the neighbors whispered. I was the third daughter, the one who helped with everything but rarely received recognition. While my siblings ran free across the fields, I stayed beside my mother, learning to cook, to sew, to keep secrets. Maybe that's why I became what I am, a woman who knows how to be silent at the right moment, but also knows when to speak. My father, oh my father. He had a stern way about him, but there was tenderness in his gaze when he thought no one was watching. It was from him I learned dignity. He always repeated, the most valuable inheritance isn't in the pocket, it's in the heart. At the time, I didn't understand. Later, when everything fell apart, those words returned like an echo, loud and painful. I grew up between the humiliation of whispered comments and the hope for a better future. I worked early, ran the household, cared for my parents, but my siblings, they always knew how to put themselves at the center. They knew how to manipulate. They always knew how to leave me out. And it was that habit, that cruel practice of making me invisible, that led years later to the most shameful day of my life, the day they read the will. But there was something they didn't know, something my father had entrusted to me in secret, and I had kept deep in my heart for decades. Chapter 2. Back then, I didn't yet understand the weight of carrying a secret. For me, it was just an act of trust. My father, with tired eyes and a low voice, called me one night to talk in the yard. He held an old notebook, its cover worn, and said, "Daughter, there are things only you can keep. I trust you because I know you won't be swayed by vanity or ambition." My heart raced. I had always felt like the forgotten daughter, the shadow in the house, and suddenly, there he was, giving me something he trusted no one else with. I remember the moon lighting his face, marked by wrinkles but also by a strange worry. He told me about documents, keepsakes, and a story I mustn't reveal until the right time came. I didn't fully understand, but I promised to keep it, and I kept it. I kept it like someone guarding an invisible treasure. Meanwhile, life went on. The routine was heavy, waking before the sun, caring for the animals, making breakfast, going to work, and still being ready when my mother needed help. And where were my siblings? Some lived for parties, others hid behind excuses, but in front of others, they knew how to pose as perfect children. It was a silent injustice, a daily humiliation. And I, in my naivete, believed patience was the same as strength. I grew up to carry everyone's burdens. I became the family caregiver, the one who never said no, who was always available. And at the same time, I became the easiest to forget. Maybe that's why, when my father fell ill, no one but me truly dedicated themselves. Months of pain, sleepless nights, medicines, hospital visits. I watched the man who always seemed unshakable become a fragile, dependent body. And still, between pain and exhaustion, he always found a way to say, "Daughter, trust. One day everything will come to light. And on that day, the truth will set you free." In that moment, I had no idea how much those words would anchor me, because the worst was yet to come. The day he left us was also the beginning of my abandonment. While I wept, bent over the bed, my siblings were already whispering in the hallway about land, money, belongings, and I, who only wanted to keep my father's memory, had no idea I would soon be erased from my family's story. Chapter 3. My father's funeral was one of the hardest days of my life, not just because of the pain of losing the man who, though stern, had always been my safe harbor, but because of the coldness with which my siblings treated me. While I cried in silence, feeling an unbearable emptiness, They moved among the guests as if it were a social event. Forced smiles, pats on the back, empty phrases. He lived well, now he's at peace. But I noticed, behind those words were calculations. That same night, one of them, the eldest, called me to talk. I remember how he crossed his arms, with that look that always belittled me. Look, sister, now that father is gone, we need to be practical. You've always been more sensitive, let's say. So it's better to let us handle the inheritance matters, the papers, the properties. Those things aren't for you. That hit me like a punch to the stomach. I, who had spent sleepless nights caring for our father, was now considered incapable even of understanding my own inheritance. I tried to argue, but he cut me off with an authoritative gesture. Trust us, it's best for everyone. It was then I realized what was coming wouldn't just be a dispute over papers or property. It would be a war of injustice and manipulation. The following days were a parade of meetings from which I was always the last to know, or not invited at all. They hid documents, scheduled meetings without telling me, made decisions without even asking my opinion, and when I complained, the same cold response came. You're overreacting. Don't make a scene. With every word, I felt humiliation and rage. It was as if my whole life of devotion had been erased, but I still had inside me the memory of what my father had entrusted to me. That old notebook, those enigmatic words about the truth that would free me. I didn't know how or when, but something told me it wasn't time to reveal it. So I kept quiet. I kept quiet and watched. I kept quiet and gathered strength, until the official meeting at the notary's office. The room was full, my siblings lined up, all with serious faces but inwardly satisfied. I walked in with my head held high, though inside I was shaking, and it was there, before the lawyer, that the greatest public humiliation of my life happened. My name was not on the document, as if I had never existed. Chapter 4. I will never forget that moment. The lawyer opened the file, adjusted his glasses, and began to read aloud. My siblings listened attentively, almost impatiently, like people waiting for the outcome of a bet. And then came the sentence that cut through my chest like a knife. Beneficiaries, so-and-so, so-chan-such, another one. My name was not mentioned, not once. For a second, I thought it was a mistake. I raised my hand, my voice trembling, and asked, "And me, where is my name?" The lawyer avoided my gaze, embarrassed. He opened the document again, flipped through the pages, as if searching for a lost line, but there was nothing. I simply did not exist in that inheritance. My siblings exchanged discreet looks, but I saw the hidden smile on one of their faces. I saw the victorious gleam in another's eyes. It was as if they had achieved what they'd always wanted, to erase me from the family story. Rage rose in me like a wildfire. This is impossible. I'm a child too. I cared for father until his last breath. How can you exclude me like this? The lawyer tried to stay calm. Ma'am, I am only reading what's written. The document is properly registered. My siblings then intervened, with that coldness that had always tormented me. Stop making a scene. Sister, Dad knew what he was doing. You've always been too fragile to handle responsibility. Fragile. That word echoed like an insult. I, who had faced sleepless nights, who had borne pain in silence, was now called fragile. In that moment, I felt both humiliation and hatred. But along with the pain, something else was born. A spark of revolt. I didn't yet know how, but I decided then that I wouldn't let myself be erased so easily. I left the notary with my head down. Yes, but inside, something began to change. My father's words returned as a whisper. The truth will set you free. What he had entrusted to me, that old notebook, could it be the key to everything? Chapter 5. I left the notary with my legs shaking. The street swam before my eyes, as if the ground had been pulled from beneath me. My siblings came out right behind me, chatting cheerfully, as if nothing had happened. It was a day of victory for them, and for me, a day of unforgettable humiliation. Passers-by glanced discreetly. Some whispered. I knew what they were saying. She's the forgotten daughter, the one who didn't get anything. That phrase burned inside me. I, who had carried so much, who had given my life for that family, was now reduced to no one. I sat on a nearby park bench. My hands trembled. The tears fell whether I could stop them or not. I felt the injustice suffocate me, like I couldn't breathe. And then, in the midst of the pain, a memory returned. That night, years earlier, in the backyard, my father holding the old notebook, his voice steady, even with his health failing. Daughter, keep it. One day, when they try to take everything from you, you'll know what to do. Suddenly I realized, this was the day he had foreseen. This was the moment. What was in that notebook? Were they just unimportant notes? Or something powerful enough to change everything? I rose with a knot in my throat. My siblings were already far away, laughing, celebrating. Inside, I swore to myself I wouldn't let the story end this way. I went back home determined to open the box where that notebook had been hidden for so many years. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and hope, and when I finally took the key to the secret drawer, my hands trembled so much I could barely turn the lock. Chapter 6. I took a deep breath before opening the notebook. It felt as if the object weighed more than my hands could bear. The cover was worn, stained by time, yet it still carried his presence. My father. When I opened the first page, I found the steady handwriting I would recognize anywhere. Simple words, but heavy with meaning. Those who see the surface do not understand the depths. I read that line over and over. It was his style, enigmatic, direct, full of hidden lessons. I kept turning the pages. There were memories of youth, names of people I hardly knew, descriptions of meetings and dates. But between ordinary notes, there were stray lines that seemed like secret messages. The truth is not in the papers, but in those who lived the story. Love is proved in silence, not in shouting. One day, when the strong show themselves weak, the truth will fall like a stone into the river. My eyes filled with tears. It felt as though he had written to me, and at the same time to a future that had not yet arrived. In the middle of the notebook I found a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. My heart raced. It was heavy, as if it held more than mere papers. But when I tried to open it, my hands failed. Fear froze me. What if there was nothing inside? What if I had invented hope where no salvation existed? I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. I remembered my siblings' laughter at the notary, their coldness, the way they reduced me to nothing. No, I could not give up. I tore the seal of the envelope. Inside were old photographs and a handwritten letter. The first photo took my breath away. My mother young, smiling in a way I had never seen. Beside her, my father, his eyes shining. On the back of the photo he had written, "For my daughter, who has always been the guardian of what is true." My whole body shuddered. I knew, in that instant, there was far more to this story than my siblings could imagine. Chapter 7. I held the letter as if it were something sacred. The paper was yellowed, fragile, with my father's steady handwriting flowing across every line. My heart beat so hard it felt like it would tear my chest. I breathed and began to read. My daughter, if you are reading these words, it is because I am no longer there to protect you. But I want you to know, you were, are, and will always be my greatest trust. I know your brothers will try to erase your importance. They live for appearances, not for truth. But what you carry cannot be destroyed. You are the heart of this family, and it is only in you that I deposit the truth I have kept in silence for so many years. My eyes filled with tears. The words danced before me, mixed with sobs I could not hold back. My father, that man who always seemed so stern, truly saw me. He knew who I was. I continued reading. What you will find in the following pages and photographs is not just memory. It is proof. Proof of who truly gave themselves, of who truly bore this family on their shoulders. One day, when they try to take everything from you, show them what they hide beneath their masks. Show them that the truth cannot be erased. My hands trembled. Each sentence felt like a flame kindling inside me. It was as if he had foreseen exactly what had happened at the notary. As if he knew I would be humiliated, excluded, treated like a burden. At the end of the letter was a single, simple, devastating line. You are the most valuable inheritance I leave. I closed my eyes and cried like I hadn't since childhood. It wasn't money, land, or goods. It was something greater, the certainty that I was not invisible. That, to him, I had always been essential. Yet the question gnawed at me. What if that wasn't enough? What if my siblings would never accept it? How could I turn that intimate truth into a weapon against their injustice? I looked at the photos again and realized there was more than memories. There were faces I didn't know. Names scribbled on the backs, dates that seemed to point to something larger. It was a puzzle. And I knew, if I had the courage to put the pieces together, I might find the key to turn the story around. Chapter 8. I spread the photographs on the table like someone assembling a puzzle of the soul. Some I recognized immediately. My mother, young. My father at community parties. images of the old house where I grew up, but others were faces I had never seen. On the back, my father had written names and dates: August 1972, promise kept; March 1980, truth kept; December 1995, never forget. Each note felt like an enigma. The more I looked, the more I asked myself, what did he want me to discover? I picked up one picture in particular. It was of a woman I didn't know. She smiled, holding a baby in her arms. On the back it read, "She deserves to be remembered." My heart raced. Who was that woman? And that baby? Could they be someone in the family? Suddenly I realized my father hadn't been leaving only memories. He was handing me evidence, as he had said in the letter. Evidence of stories the others didn't want unearthed. That night I couldn't sleep. The notary's words echoed in my mind. Her name does not appear on the document. Alongside them, the line from the letter, "Show them what they hide beneath the mask." Yes, there was a mask. My siblings had always presented themselves as the responsible ones, the natural heirs. But perhaps, behind that pose, there were secrets, lies, ancient betrayals. Deep down, I no longer wanted merely a share of the inheritance. I wanted justice. I wanted the truth. I closed the notebook carefully and put it away again, but this time not out of fear. I hid it like someone conceals a silent weapon, waiting for the right moment to use it. And I promised myself, if my siblings thought they could humiliate me forever, they were mistaken. What my father left me would be my strength. Chapter 9. The next morning, I woke different. I still felt the sting of humiliation, but something new burned inside me. A flicker of courage. My siblings believed I was defeated, but little did they know the silence I now kept was full of power. I decided to start small. I found my eldest brother, the one who had always tried to silence me, at his gate. He looked satisfied, as if the victory at the notary were the trophy of a life of manipulation. "Sister, I hope you've understood by now that it's better not to touch this inheritance matter anymore. It's what Father wanted." His voice was firm, but I noticed a sliver of nervousness hidden beneath it. I breathed, looked him straight in the eyes, and answered calmly, "Are you sure? You know what Father really wanted?" He froze for a moment. It was quick, but I saw it, that shadow of doubt, that fear that shows itself in fractions of a second. "What are you insinuating?" He shot back, trying to keep control. I smiled slightly, as someone keeping a trump card up their sleeve. "I'm just saying Father left more than papers, and when the time comes, you'll all find out." I saw the color drain from his face. He tried to change the subject, but it was too late. The seed of insecurity had been planted. In that moment I was certain. They were hiding something, and whatever it was, my father knew. And now, I was about to find out too. I went home with a strange feeling. It was as if I had taken the first step toward a silent battle. I had no money, no lawyers, no influence, but I had something they would never imagine: the truth in my hands. And with every page of that notebook, every photograph marked by my father, I felt myself drawing closer to a secret capable of toppling all the masks. Chapter 10. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of my brother paling at my words wouldn't leave my mind. I had touched something, and he knew it. He knew I wasn't as blind as he had thought. I took the notebook again. I sat at the kitchen table with only the weak light of the lamp. The old pages smelled of time, of history. I ran my fingers over my father's firm handwriting until something caught my eye. In a corner, almost hidden among the notes, a line had been underlined: Cruzeiro Farm, menos 1980. My heart sped up. Cruzeiro Farm. I vaguely remembered that place. It was an old family property, but it hadn't been mentioned for years. My siblings never spoke of it, as if it had slipped out of the family's collective memory. I continued reading, and found more. Promise made to the one who could not be forgotten. The true legacy lies where the eyes do not reach. A chill ran down my spine. My father was guiding me. This was not just about memories. There was a place, a buried secret, perhaps even concrete proof of what they had tried so hard to hide. I closed the notebook and pressed my forehead against it. Tears flowed, not from weakness, but from a mix of pain and hope. For so long I had accepted being the invisible one, the forgotten one, the one without a voice, but now I had a path. I decided I would go to Cruzeiro Farm, alone, if necessary, and I would discover what my father had hidden there. Chapter 11. I spent the whole day with my head buzzing. The name of that place, Cruzeiro Farm, wouldn't leave my mind. It was like a small flame burning quietly inside me. But along with hope came fear. What if my siblings discovered I had the notebook? What if they moved first and destroyed whatever was there? I knew they were capable of anything to keep me invisible. I went to the living room shelf, opened the secret drawer, and hid the notebook inside a plastic bag, deep at the back, behind old books nobody cared to touch. If anything happened to me, at least that would be protected. That night I sat on the edge of the bed and thought about everything I had lived through. The times I accepted silence to avoid fights, the times I gave up dreaming to care for others, the times I cried alone with no one noticing. And now, finally, I had a chance to honor my father, a chance to show I was not weak or disposable, a chance to reveal the truth. I decided I would go to the farm over the weekend, but I would have to go alone, without arousing suspicion. My siblings were clever, and if they suspected, they might follow me. I looked out the window and saw the moon high, lighting the empty yard. I felt a shiver. It was as if my father were there, watching over me, whispering, "Courage, daughter, the time is coming." I lay down, but sleep didn't come. With every creak of the house, my heart raced. Did they already know? Did any of them suspect I had something? I closed my eyes tightly and made a silent promise. I would reach Crucero Farm before them. And when I did, I would discover what my father had hidden there. Chapter 12. Saturday dawned gray. The sky hung heavy, as if it knew the day would bring revelations buried for decades. I woke before sunrise, made a strong coffee, and took a deep breath. My heart raced. It was the day to go to Crucero Farm. I grabbed my bag and put the notebook and photographs inside, wrapped in an old cloth. For a moment, I thought about leaving them at home, but I pulled back. What if there was something there that only made sense with those pages? No. I needed to carry my father's legacy with me. The dirt road to the farm felt longer than I remembered. Every pothole, every curve kicked up a cloud of dust that made me cough. As I drove, memories flooded in. I was a child the last time I went there. I remembered running through the fields, hearing my father talk to men I didn't know. My mother, always discreet, watched from a distance. After that, we never returned, and I never understood why. Now, decades later, there I was, heading alone to a place wrapped in mystery. At moments, fear took over. What if it was dangerous? What if I was feeding false hope? But then the memory of the notary returned like an open wound, the laughter of my siblings, the feeling of being erased, and that gave me strength to keep going. After more than an hour on the road, I spotted the entrance to the farm in the distance. The wooden gate had fallen, choked by weeds. The rusted fence seemed to be fighting time. It was as if the place had been deliberately abandoned, forcibly forgotten. I parked, took a deep breath, and walked to the gate. The silence was so deep I could hear my own breathing. I pushed the wood with effort. It creaked loudly, as if protesting my presence. I took my first step inside the farm, and a strange feeling washed over me. It was as if I were entering not just a place, but a past everyone wanted to bury. Chapter 13. The air on the farm was heavy, smelling of abandonment. With every step, the tall grass brushed my legs, as if trying to stop me from going on. The silence was so deep that even the rustle of leaves sounded like a shout. I looked around. The main house was in ruins, broken windows, parts of the roof caving in. Yet there was still something imposing there, as if those old walls guarded secrets that refused to die. I pushed open the front door. It yielded with difficulty, groaning like a lament. I went in. The wooden floor creaked under my feet. In the air, a mix of dust and memories. I ran my hand over a piece of furniture covered in dust. For an instant, I saw myself as a child again, running through the halls, hearing my father's voice echo in serious conversations. He always pushed me away from those meetings. "Go play outside, daughter." Back then I thought it was protection. Now I realized it was secrecy. As I walked through the rooms, something caught my eye. On the wall of the old sitting room, a cross had been carved into the wood. Simple, almost imperceptible, but I recognized it immediately. My father had a habit of marking places he considered important with small crosses. Cruzado. Suddenly the name of the farm made sense. I moved closer and touched the cross with my fingertips. The wood was cold, worn, and behind it, when I tapped lightly, I heard a different sound, like there was a hollow space hidden there. My heart raced. I knelt and searched for an opening, but found nothing. Even so, I knew there was something there. I ran back to my bag and grabbed the notebook. I flipped through until I found the page with the note. Cruzeiro Farm. Behind faith lies the truth. Behind faith, behind the cross. A shiver ran through me. My father had left a direct message. And now, faced with that mark on the wall, I knew I was about to uncover something that could change everything. Chapter 14. My hands trembled as I touched the carved cross again. The notebook's words echoed in my mind like a whisper. Behind faith lies the truth. I ran my fingers over the wood, searching for any sign, any gap. Suddenly I noticed a tiny unevenness at the lower corner, almost invisible. I knelt and pressed hard. I heard a dry snap. My heart leaped. The wall gave slightly, revealing a small hidden door behind the cross. For a moment, I froze. What if there was something inside I wasn't ready to see? But the memory of my exclusion at the notary brought my courage back. I opened the compartment. Darkness filled it, but soon I saw a bundle covered in fabric worn by time. I lifted it carefully. It was heavy. I unwrapped it slowly and found a metal box, locked with an old padlock. Cold swept through my veins. My father had truly hidden something there, and from the weight of the box, it wasn't small. I ran my hand over the rusted padlock, unsure how to open it. I remembered the notebook again. I flipped through in a rush until I found another underlined phrase. The key is in the heart of the house. I lifted my eyes and studied the old house. The heart of the house. Was it the kitchen, the sitting room, or something more symbolic? A mix of fear and hope took hold of me. If the key was really there, then my father had prepared everything so only I would find it. I clutched the box to my chest. In that moment I realized I was closer to the truth than ever. And perhaps that was exactly what my siblings feared. Chapter 15. I held the metal box to my chest as if it were a heart beating against mine. The rusted padlock seemed to mock me. But I knew my father wouldn't have left an impossible riddle. He trusted I would find the way. The words guided me. The key is in the heart of the house. I looked around, trying to understand. Even in ruins, the house still kept its old layout: small bedrooms, narrow hallways, and at the center, the kitchen. That was always where everything happened. The family gathered there. Serious talks were interrupted by laughter. Life pulsed there. The heart of the house. It had to be the kitchen. I walked there with slow, careful steps. The door creaked as I pushed it. The room was blanketed in dust, but you could still make out the wood-burning stove, the time-worn table, the scuffed cabinets. Everything felt suspended in the past. I approached the table. I ran my hand over the rough surface and found a discreet carving in the middle, as if someone had marked a letter or a symbol. It was a small cross. My whole body shivered. I knelt and rapped my knuckles on the wood. A hollow sound answered. Something was hidden there. With effort, I loosened one of the table planks. Beneath it, a small compartment revealed a dark wooden box. My eyes filled with tears. I lifted it carefully. Inside, wrapped in a piece of red cloth, was an old key. My heart hammered. It was heavy, wrought iron, with details that betrayed the care of whoever had it made. My father. I was certain. The key that could open the metal box. I sat on the kitchen floor with the key in one hand and the box in the other. For a moment, I hesitated. Part of me feared what I would find inside. What if it was too painful? What if it was a truth capable of shattering my life even more? But then I remembered my siblings' faces cold, laughing at my expense. I remembered the lawyer reading the will without my name. I remembered the sleepless nights beside my ailing father. No, I needed to know. I deserved to know. I slipped the key into the padlock. It turned with a dry click. The box was about to open. Chapter 16. With trembling hands, I lifted the lid of the metal box. The smell of aged iron and old paper escaped at once, like a breath from the past. My eyes stung with expectation. Inside were bundles of yellowed papers, carefully folded. On top, an envelope with a handwritten note for my daughter. My heart raced. I opened it carefully. Inside, I found official documents, deeds, property records, contracts. My eyes widened as I recognized what I was looking at. Cruzeiro Farm, that forgotten place, was registered entirely in my name. Since 1980, my palms went slick. The clerk's clear script, the seal, the signatures, everything was there. And beneath my father's signature, a line written in pen, "Because she is the one who will care for what is true." Tears fell before I could stop them. While my siblings schemed to cut me out of the inheritance, my father had already ensured I would have something of my own. a piece of the family's story kept in secret, a piece that proved I was never invisible. I kept digging through the box. There were also old letters exchanged between my father and people I didn't know. The words were always careful, but they spoke of promises, of debts, of gratitude, of truths that could not be revealed right away. Each line seemed to point to something even bigger than a simple deed. There were layers to this story. Layers my siblings never imagined I'd have the courage to uncover. I held the documents to my chest. It wasn't just proof that I deserved a place in the inheritance. It was confirmation that my father had seen in me the guardian of the truth. And there, in the silence of the abandoned house, I made a promise out loud. I won't be silent anymore. I'll show them that justice exists, that the truth can't be buried. But deep down I knew, revealing this wouldn't be simple. My siblings wouldn't accept it easily, and if they found out I had opened the box, they would do anything to destroy it. The game was only beginning. And in my hands, I held the piece that could turn the story around. Chapter 17. The road back felt longer than the way there. The car jolted along the dirt track, kicking up dust, but I could barely see what was in front of me. My mind was elsewhere. The weight of the metal box on the seat beside me was a constant reminder that my life had just changed. Inside, it was proof that I had never been forgotten, that my father had set aside something that was mine alone. But it also held the reason my siblings would do anything to silence me. At every bend, I checked the rearview mirror, as if someone might be following me. Fear grew. Did they already know? Had they been spying on me? When I finally got home, I locked every door and shut the windows. I felt like a criminal guarding a forbidden secret. I put the box in the deepest part of my bedroom closet, hidden among old blankets. Still, my heart wouldn't calm. I sat on the bed, took a deep breath, and tried to organize my thoughts. If I simply showed the documents, my siblings would contest them. They'd say they were fake, that I had made them up. And knowing them, they wouldn't hesitate to use lies to discredit me. I needed to be strategic. I had to find the right moment, show the evidence when they least expected it, and preferably in front of witnesses who couldn't deny the truth. While I was thinking, I heard a noise outside. Footsteps. My heart nearly stopped. I rose slowly, went to the window, and eased the curtain aside. One of my brothers stood at the gate. He didn't knock, didn't call. He just stood there, staring at the house with a hard, suspicious expression. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. A shiver ran down my spine. He knew. Somehow, he knew I had something. Chapter 18. That night I barely slept. Every creak of the wood, every moan of the wind against the windows made me flinch. I had the clear feeling I wasn't alone, as if invisible eyes were tracking me, waiting for me to let my guard down. The image of my brother at the gate, silent, haunted me. It wasn't a casual visit. It was a warning, they suspected. I got up in the middle of the night and went to the bedroom. I opened the closet, moved the blankets, and stared at the metal box. I ran my hand over it and felt a tightness in my chest. It was my strength, but also my danger. If they discovered I had it, they'd do anything to take it from me. And I knew they wouldn't hesitate to use lies, manipulation, even violence, if needed. I thought about hiding the box somewhere else. Maybe bury it in the yard, maybe leave it with someone I trusted. But whom could I trust? Over a lifetime I'd learned trust was fragile and in my family, nearly non-existent. I sat on the edge of the bed and closed my eyes. The words from the letter echoed inside me. Show them what they hide beneath the mask. Yes, I couldn't just defend myself. I had to act, reveal, little by little, that I knew more than they imagined. Make the fear switch sides. But how? Alone, without money, without allies, against three brothers united by ambition. It was an uneven fight. And yet, inside me, a flame burned, the flame of justice. The next morning, while I was making coffee, I heard footsteps outside again. This time, two sets. I looked out the window. My other brothers, standing together, speaking in low voices, glancing toward the house. When they noticed me watching, they pretended nothing was happening and walked away. My whole body bristled. They were circling me, waiting for a slip, waiting for me to falter. But I wouldn't falter. If they wanted to keep me under watch, then I would let them believe I was still the same fragile, submissive, silent sister. Meanwhile, I would prepare the strike. Chapter 19. I spent the entire day on edge. My brothers circling the house like birds of prey wouldn't leave my mind. I knew it wasn't a question of if they would come for me, but when. And for the first time in many years, I understood I couldn't face it alone. I needed someone not to carry my burden, that was mine, but to help me turn it into strength. I took my father's notebook again. I flipped through the pages, searching for anything that could point the way. And there, among seemingly loose notes, one line gleamed before my eyes. Walk alone, and you arrive faster. Walk together, and you go farther. My heart tightened. It felt like he was speaking to me there, in that silent kitchen. I needed allies. But who, among so many who had always closed their eyes to my pain, would extend a hand now? That's when I remembered Donna, Helenan, old neighbor, my mother's friend. A just woman, known in town for not bowing to injustice. She always told me, "You're stronger than you think, my girl. You just have to believe it." Maybe she could be the ear I needed. Maybe, with her experience, she could help me find the right path. That afternoon, I decided to visit her. I tucked the box back in the closet, locked the house, and headed to the small homestead where she lived. When I arrived, Donna Helena was on the porch, sewing as always. Her keen eyes met me with tenderness, but also with that look of someone who sees beyond appearances. "My dear, what happened? You're pale. It looks like you're carrying the world on your back." I sat down in front of her, and the tears came before I could stop them. I told her everything: the exclusion at the notary, the humiliation, the notebook, the abandoned farm, the metal box, the documents in my name. As I spoke, I saw in her eyes something I hadn't seen in a long time: true indignation. When I finished, she held my hands firmly and said, "They may have the inheritance on paper, but you have the inheritance of truth, and that is what will bring them down." In that instant, I realized I was no longer alone, and that perhaps, with the right people beside me, I could finally turn the game around. Chapter 20. I went back the next day, taking the box with me. My steps were heavy, and at every corner I looked back, afraid I was being followed, but the need to share that burden outweighed the fear. When I reached Donna Helena's house, she greeted me with that steady look that seemed to cut through any lie. I set the metal box on her kitchen table and opened it slowly. The smell of old paper drifted into the air. I showed her the deeds, the letters, the photographs. I explained every detail: Crucero Farm in my name, my father's enigmatic phrases, the secret kept behind the cross. She listened in silence, from time to time, a heavy sigh, a slow shake of the head in disapproval. When I finished, she brushed her hand over the documents carefully, like touching something sacred. "My child, this is much more than an inheritance. It's proof your father trusted you. He knew your brothers would be capable of betraying even their own blood." My eyes brimmed again. "But what do I do, Donna Helena? If I show this now, they'll call me a liar. They'll say I made it all up. I don't have the strength to fight them." She squeezed my hands firmly. "Don't underestimate the power of truth. You don't need to shout for it to appear. You only need to choose the right moment. And when that moment comes, your brothers will have nowhere to run." Her words warmed me like an embrace, but along with hope came the weight of responsibility. I knew I was keeping something that could change everything, and I also knew my brothers wouldn't sit still. "They're already watching me," I admitted, staring at the floor. Then, feign weakness, she replied without hesitation. "Let them think they still have control. Meanwhile, you get stronger. And when you're ready, show them the strength you guarded in silence for so many years." Right then, I understood. This wasn't just a fight over documents or land. It was a fight for justice, for dignity, for everything that had been taken from me by force. And with Donna Helena at my side, for the first time in a long time, I felt I wasn't walking alone. Chapter 21. Over the next few days, I tried to follow Donna Helena's guidance. I pretended to be beaten, downcast, as if I had accepted being cut out of the inheritance. But inside, I was alert, watching every move. It didn't take long for my brothers to show up again. This time, they came together, unannounced, knocking at my door without warning. I opened, with my heart pounding, but kept my voice low, feigning resignation. "We need to talk," the eldest said, pushing the door before I could answer. They walked in without ceremony, and sat at the table like they owned the place. I looked at them, and saw the same expression on each face: coldness, mixed with something new. Suspicion. "Sister, we want to make sure you understand the situation," one began. "The will's been read. You're entitled to nothing. There's no point insisting," the other finished. I stayed quiet for a few seconds, just watching. Then I sighed and lowered my eyes. I know you always win. I don't have the strength to fight." They exchanged satisfied looks, but the eldest narrowed his eyes and said, "There's just one thing. You've been acting strange, different, like you've got some card up your sleeve." My heart kicked, but I didn't show it. I lifted my eyes slowly and gave a faint smile. "Cards, if I had any, you would have ripped them out of me already, wouldn't you?" The room fell silent. They hadn't expected that answer. One brother coughed, nervous, the other looked away. Inside, I celebrated. They were insecure, and that insecurity was proof that I did, in fact, have power over them even if they had no idea how much yet. When they left, I shut the door and breathed deep. My legs trembled, my palms sweated. It was risky to toy with their fear, but I knew, the more they suspected, the more they'd reveal themselves. And deep in my heart, one certainty grew. The day of truth was drawing near. Chapter 22. 2 days after that uncomfortable visit, I heard heavy footsteps in the yard. I ran to the window and, to my astonishment, saw one of my brothers fiddling with the gate as if trying to force his way in. My heart raced. I opened the door firmly. "What do you think you're doing?" He pretended it was nothing, but his face gave him away. "Just wanted to see if you were okay. You've been so quiet. Thought you might need help." Help. The word left his mouth loaded with falseness, the same mouth that days earlier had signed off on cutting me out of the will. I folded my arms. "I'm fine. And I don't need your concern." He stared at me for a moment, trying to read whether I was telling the truth. Then he stepped closer and lowered his voice. "If you're hiding something, sister, no, you won't be able to hold on to it for long." A chill ran down my spine. It was a threat, clear and direct, but I didn't back down. I looked him straight in the eyes and answered, "Funny, that's exactly what I think about you." He went pale. He said nothing more, turned on his heel, and left in a hurry, trying to hide his nerves. When the door closed behind him, my legs gave way. I sat on the floor, breathing hard. The fear was real. They were getting desperate, and the more desperate they were, the more dangerous they became. But at the same time, a flame of courage grew inside me. For the first time, I hadn't lowered my head. For the first time, I had faced one of them as an equal. And I realized that was my greatest victory so far. They were used to my submission. Now, every time they saw me stand firm, every time they felt my quiet resistance, it was like a crack opened in their fortress of power. And I knew, sooner or later, that wall would crumble. I just had to keep resisting. Chapter 23. After my brother's menacing visit, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I spent the night wide awake, listening to every sound in the house, imagining 1,000 ways they might strike. I knew from that day on they wouldn't bother hiding their hostility. The next morning I went to see Donna Helena. She was sitting on the porch drinking tea, as if she already knew I would come. Her keen eyes welcomed me calmly, but they quickly caught the unrest on my face. "They came to my door," I said, my voice breaking. "One of them tried to intimidate me. He nearly forced his way in. I don't know how far they'll go." She set down her cup and took my hands. "That's how injustice moves, my dear. First it tries to erase you through silence. When it can't, it turns to intimidation. But their fear has already begun." "Fear?" I asked, surprised. She nodded. "Yes, if they were certain, they wouldn't need to threaten. The fact they're circling your house shows they sense you're holding something strong." My heart beat faster. She was right. They were desperate because they could no longer control me with silence. But what do I do? Donna Helena. They're stronger, more money, more influence. All I have are these papers and my father's memory. She stood and looked deep into my eyes, speaking with resolve. "You have something they'll never have, the truth. And truth doesn't stay hidden forever. What you need now is to choose the right moment, and the right people before whom to reveal it. It isn't enough to show the documents in secret. You must expose them. You must tear their masks off in front of everyone." Her words hit me like a flash of light. Expose. Make it so there was no turning back, so they could no longer manipulate from the shadows behind the facade of exemplary sons. My chest filled with a courage I'd never felt before. It wouldn't be easy, I knew that. But one thing became clear on that porch. One day soon I would raise those documents before everyone's eyes. And on that day, the humiliation would change sides. Chapter 24. The days that followed felt like walking through a minefield. At every corner, I noticed different looks. At the bakery, whispers. At the market, ironic smiles. In the aisles, people turning their faces away. It didn't take long to understand what was happening. My brothers had started spreading lies about me. A neighbor approached cautiously and, in a low voice, told me, "They're saying you lost your mind after your father died, saying you make up stories, that you're obsessed with things that don't exist." Another, the next day, said, "I heard you're trying to steal family documents, that you want to take what isn't yours." The words cut me like knives. It was a new form of humiliation. It wasn't enough to exclude me from the inheritance. Now they wanted to erase me from the community's memory too, turning me into a target of shame and disbelief. I went home with tears in my eyes, my heart heavy. For a moment, I thought about giving up. It was like fighting a wall of stone. I was tired of being the humiliated one, the forgotten one. But when I got home, I found the notebook on the table. I opened it instinctively, and there was another line from my father, one I'd read before but never understood so well. "When everyone rises against you, do not fear. It means the truth is close to appearing." My eyes filled with tears. It was as if he had foreseen even this, the slander, the lies, the attempts to silence me. I took a breath and wiped my face. They could stain my name, but they could never erase the proof I carried. And when the time came, they would be the ones exposed. They would face the public shame they were now trying to throw on me. I went to bed that night with a heavy yet steady heart. No matter how hard they tried to destroy me, what I held in my hands was stronger than all their lies. Chapter 25. The next morning I went to Donna Helena's house again. She sensed the weight on my face from afar. "They've started spreading lies, haven't they?" she asked before I could say a word. I nodded, tears brimming. "They say I've gone crazy, that I make up stories, that I want to steal what isn't mine." She drew a deep breath and adjusted her glasses. "It's the coward's last resort, my dear. When they can't erase you, they turn your pain into a punchline. But don't let it shake you. It's time for the next step." "What step?" I asked, still unsure. She squeezed my hands firmly. "You need to show you're not alone. You must expose, before eyes they can't manipulate, that the truth is on your side. Start small, but start. Let the community see you have proof that you're not a madwoman." Her words echoed in me like a calling. It was time to break the silence, time to put the first crack in the perfect mask my brothers wore before everyone. That afternoon, I made a risky decision. I took some documents and went to the town church. The priest, who had known our family forever, looked surprised to see me. "Child, what's wrong? You look distressed." I drew a steady breath, took the deed to the farm, and laid it on his desk. "Father, I need you to see this. I need you to know I'm not what they're saying about me." He adjusted his glasses, read carefully, and looked at me with seriousness. "This is in your name," he murmured. I nodded, tears in my eyes. "They want to erase me, Father. But my father never forgot me. He trusted me, and I won't let them treat me like I'm invisible." The priest was silent for a long moment, then nodded. "You're right. The truth should not be hidden, and I will be a witness that these documents exist." I left the church with a lighter heart. It was only the first step, but enough to strengthen me. Now I had not only Donna Helena, but also a respected voice in the community by my side. My brothers didn't know it yet, but the noose was starting to tighten. Chapter 26. It didn't take long for my brothers to sense something was changing. Maybe they heard talk at the market. Maybe someone told them they'd seen me at the church with the priest. The fact is, their stance shifted. That week, they showed up at my house again, this time not to talk, but to attack. They pounded on the door, no ceremony. When I opened it, they stormed in like a tempest. "What have you been up to, sister?" the eldest asked, eyes sparking with rage. "People are saying you've been flashing papers around, papers that mean nothing," the middle one added, slapping his hand on the table. I feigned calm, though my heart was racing. "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe they've seen what you don't want them to see." The silence that followed was suffocating. They traded nervous looks. The youngest, always the most impatient, stepped forward. "You think you can embarrass us. If you try to expose anything, you'll regret it." Something inside me broke at that moment. The submissive woman who always swallowed her tears no longer existed. I met their eyes and answered, "Regret. I regretted for years that I stayed silent. Not anymore. If I have to expose the truth, I will. And no matter how many lies you invent, the truth always wins." Their faces went pale. It was the first time they had seen me speak with such firmness, and for an instant, it was as if their mask had cracked. They left, slamming the door and spitting threats. But as I watched them go, I realized that deep down they were afraid. I truly had the power to turn the story around. I sat alone, breathing hard. My hands trembled, but my heart was steady. I knew the confrontation was getting closer, and when it came, there would be no turning back. Chapter 27. Life in a small town has never been easy for those who carry a burden. Narrow streets and quiet squares bear witness to gossip that spreads faster than the wind, and after everything that had happened, I became the center of every conversation. At the market, I clearly heard two women whisper when I walked by, "Poor thing. She's lost her mind. Or worse, she's trying to fool everyone with fake papers." I pretended not to hear, but each word cut like a knife. It was the same public humiliation I'd faced at the notary's office, now amplified and multiplied by everyone's mouths. But not everyone was against me. Some people, especially the older ones, looked at me with sympathy. An elderly woman, who had known my father, held my arm and murmured, "He always said you were the most trustworthy. Don't let them take that from you." Those small signs of support were drops of hope in the desert of malice. But my brothers didn't stop. They spread ever heavier lies, that I wanted to sue them out of envy, that I was trying to forge inheritances, that I was exploiting my father's memory for attention. And the community, divided, became an invisible battlefield. On one side, those who believed my word. On the other, those seduced by the image of good sons my brothers had always maintained. I came home that day with my heart crushed, feeling alone again, surrounded by judging eyes. But when I opened my father's notebook, I found another line, like a bomb: "The shame they throw on you will be the weight that falls on them." I closed my eyes and let the tears fall. It wasn't easy. It was painful, humiliating, exhausting. But I knew every lie they spread would, in the end, be the poison that destroyed them. And in that moment I realized I didn't need everyone to believe me. I only needed the truth to stand firm. Because when the time came, it would be too big to deny. Chapter 28. Slander no longer satisfied them. I could see it in the looks, the whispers, the way my brothers watched me from afar. They were getting impatient. And when lies fall short, violence becomes the coward's weapon. That night, walking home from Dona Helena's, I passed near the square and heard muffled laughter. My blood ran cold as I recognized the voices. It was them. I crept closer, hidden in the tree's shadows, and heard clearly, "She must have the papers stashed somewhere. If we let her, she expose us. The whole town will laugh at us. Then we won't let her. We go in, grab everything, and end this once and for all." My heart pounded. My legs went weak. They were planning to break into my house to destroy the only proof I had left. I ran back without thinking, as if the night itself were complicit in my desperation. When I arrived, I threw the iron bolt, shoved the box deeper into the closet, and fumbled with the padlock, my hands shaking so hard I could barely latch it. I sat on the floor, breathless, eyes brimming. The fear was real, palpable, suffocating. I knew they were capable of anything. But, amid the anguish, my father's words returned like a whisper. "Behind faith lies the truth." He had hidden the box at the farm, guarded by symbols of hope, because he knew one day they would try to rip it from me. I wiped my tears and drew a long breath. They could force their way in. They could try to destroy me. But I had something they never would: the certainty of standing on the right side. That night I slept with the box against me, like guarding a piece of my own soul. And I swore in silence, if they tried to take it from me, I would fight to the end. Chapter 29. The pre-dawn hours were too quiet, a dense, strange silence that kept me from closing my eyes. I lay down, but every creak in the house made me flinch. My heart beat like a drum inside my chest. Then I heard its footsteps, low, dragging, outside. My blood froze. I clutched the box to me as if it were my last shield. I rose slowly, barefoot, and went to the window. I edged the curtain back and saw the shadows, 3 figures standing at the gate. My brothers. They whispered, but the night carried every word. "The lock's old. It'll give easily. We grab it fast and she'll never open her mouth again. Quick, before anyone sees." My whole body trembled. It was real. They were here to break in, to rip away what my father had entrusted to me. I ran to the door and held the iron bar tight. The first hit came right after. The wood groaned but held. Another blow harder. The door shuddered. Tears streaked my face. It was like living a nightmare. With each strike, I felt the humiliation, the injustice, the betrayal of blood closing in. But amid the panic, something sparked inside me, the certainty that I could not give way. I shouted with everything I had. Get out of here. I'm not afraid of you. If you try to break in, everyone will know what you really are. Silence, outside's tense, heavy, then hurried footsteps retreating, laced with curses. I collapsed to my knees, trembling, hugging the box. They had backed off, but they wouldn't give up. I knew they'd be back. In that instant, I understood. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to move first, and the time was near. Chapter 30. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Every shadow on the wall felt like a threat. Every gust at the window sounded like a fresh assault. But beneath the fear, a firm decision grew. I would no longer live as a prisoner in my own home. At dawn, I stepped onto the porch and looked to the horizon. The sun rose shyly, lighting my face like a sign. I felt a strength inside me I hadn't felt in years. The time had come. I took my father's notebook, the metal box, and all the proof he'd left me. I placed everything carefully into a thick folder tied with cords. I looked at it and whispered, "Dad, your truth will be heard. I promise." I went to Donna Helena that same day. She received me with tearful eyes, as if she already knew the terror I'd lived through the night before. I told her about the attempted break-in, and she was quiet for a moment before saying, "Then there's no time to lose. You must expose this in a way they cannot silence." "But how? They have money, influential friends, even lawyers. All I have are old papers and my father's word." She smiled, not a light smile, but one forged by experience. "And that's all you need. Lies can buy mouths, but they cannot erase documents. What you're missing is the right stage." Her words made me tremble. The right stage, a place where everyone could see, where they could no longer deny. At Sunday Mass, she suggested, "The church has always been this community's heart. If you show it there, before everyone, no mask will hold." My heart raced. The idea was risky, bold, but perfect. The priest had already seen the papers. He would be a witness. And my brothers, so used to humiliating me in silence, would be exposed before the whole town. In that moment, I realized the war was reaching its peak. The confrontation was inevitable, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Chapter 31. The days leading up to Sunday were the longest of my life. Every hour carried a century's weight. I moved through the house as if walking on glass, careful not to leave traces, hiding the folder well. My brothers didn't show up, but I felt them at every corner. A neighbor told me he'd seen them speaking loudly in the square, pointing at my house. Another said they were lining up lawyers as a precaution. They already sensed I was going to fight back. At night, fear returned to haunt me. I dreamed of doors splintering, of shouting, of the box being torn from my hands. I woke drenched in sweat, heart galloping. Then I remembered my father's words. "The shame they throw on you will be the weight that falls on them." And that gave me strength. I spent hours at Donna Helena's, practicing what I would say. She listened with patience, corrected me, sharpened my sentences. "Don't speak only of documents. Speak of pain, of devotion, of how you cared for your father when no one else would. Make them feel the injustice. The truth isn't just on paper, it's in your voice." I nodded, crying quietly. She was right. The force wasn't only in the papers, but in the story I carried in my chest. On the eve of Mass, I arranged the folder with utmost care. I checked each document, each photograph, each note from the notebook. I put everything in order, like a shield against the lies to come. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, the folder in my arms, and spoke softly as if my father could hear me. "They humiliated me, erased me, called me crazy. But tomorrow, Dad, I'll show everyone who I am. And I'll show them you never forgot me." The tears came, but this time, they weren't from weakness. They were from courage, from preparation, from a certainty burning inside me. Tomorrow would be the turning point. Chapter 32. Sunday dawned with the town's heart in motion. Streets were full, whole families walking toward the church, like every Sunday. But for me, it wasn't just another day. It was the day my life would change forever. I clutched the folder to my chest like a shield. Donna Helena walked beside me, steady eyes, sharp with the weight of the moment. "Breathe deep, my dear. Today is the day of truth. They'll try to silence you. But remember, you're not alone anymore." When I stepped into the church, I felt every gaze fall on me. Some curious, some judgmental. Whispers spread like fire through dry straw. "It's her, the one they say lost her mind. Let's see what she makes up this time." My brothers were already there, seated in the front pews, lined up like marble statues, suits and ties, solemn faces, perfect posture. the picture of respectful, honorable sons. But beneath it, I saw what few noticed: hidden tension, hard eyes, the certainty they still controlled everything. The priest began Mass, but I barely heard the opening words. My heart pounded, my hands were slick. The folder lay across my lap, heavy as fate. At moments, my eyes met my brother's. They smiled, cold, as if to say, "You won't have the courage." That smile gave me strength. A flame rose inside me. I hadn't survived all this to back down now. It was time to raise the voice they'd stifled my whole life. As the service went on, my legs trembled. I knew that when the moment came, I would have to stand before everyone and reveal what they feared most, the truth my father had left for me. Chapter 33. The priest's homily was ending. As his last words echoed through the church, an impulse rose in me. My body shook, but my soul burned like fire. It was now, or never. I gripped the folder and stood slowly. The pew creaked. A few people turned. My brothers noticed. One widened his eyes, another clenched his fists, and the eldest shook his head, as if begging silently, "Don't." But I couldn't turn back. I took a few steps forward and, with a trembling yet steady voice, said, "Please, I need to say something. I need to be heard." The church fell into silence. Even the priest looked surprised, but he didn't stop me. Every eye was on me. For a moment, I felt the weight of every whisper, every humiliation. Every time I'd been silenced, I drew a breath. Many of you have heard that I've lost my mind, that I make up stories, that I want to steal what isn't mine. Today I'm going to show you the truth they've hidden from you for years. My brothers shifted in the pew, uneasy. One started to rise, but the priest lifted his hand, imposing quiet. "Let her speak," he said firmly. My heart hammered, but I went on. All my life, I was the forgotten daughter, the one who served, who cared, who gave things up. While they, I pointed at my brothers, unafraid, paraded as exemplary sons. I sat by our father through his last nights, holding his hand, and it was to me he entrusted what no one else deserves to carry, the truth. With each word, I felt strength grow. With each sentence, their mask began to crack. I hugged the folder to my chest and finished. What they tried to bury with me is going to be revealed now, before everyone. The entire church held its breath. My brothers blanched, as if the ground had vanished beneath their feet. With steady hands, I opened the folder. Chapter 34. My fingers shook as I pulled the first envelope from the folder. The church was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I lifted the deed for all to see. Here is proof my father never forgot me. Crucero Farm, registered in my name since 1980. While they tried to erase me, he had already written, with his own hands, that I was worthy to care for this legacy. A murmur rippled through the church. Some rose to see better. The priest leaned forward, confirming the notary seal with his own eyes. My brothers reacted at once. The eldest sprang up and shouted, "Lies! It's forged! Old papers she cooked up to slander us." The middle one lurched toward me, as if to snatch the documents from my hands. But Donna Helena stood firm, stepping between us with a look that said there'd be no more violence. "No one will silence this woman today," she said, loud enough to make the church quake. My legs trembled, but I held fast. I opened my father's notebook and showed a marked page. And here are words he wrote in his own hand. Words you can't fake, because everyone knows his handwriting. He called me the guardian of the truth. He said I was his most valuable inheritance. The murmurs swelled. Eyes that had judged me turned toward my brothers with suspicion. The perfect mask they'd worn for years began to split in front of everyone. The youngest, desperate, shouted, "That proves nothing, just scribbles." But the priest raised his voice, firm and solemn. "I saw these documents myself beforehand, and I affirm, they are legitimate." A heavy silence fell. My brothers, who always held all the cards, were cornered, for the first time lost for a response. With tears in my eyes, I realized the tide was turning. The town was finally seeing who we really were. Chapter 35. The thick silence broke with my eldest brother's strained voice. He thrust his arms out, speaking loudly to claw back control. "Don't be fooled. She's using emotion to manipulate you. She's always been fragile, living in fantasies. Now she wants to stain our father's memory out of revenge." Some muttered agreement, others shook their heads, indignant. The middle brother stepped forward and added, "Those papers prove nothing. The farm isn't even active. She made this up for attention. You all know we're the ones who always cared for the family." Their words rang through the sanctuary. but this time they didn't land the way they used to. I could tell the community no longer saw them with the same trust. Masks were slipping. I held the notebook tight and took a breath. My voice came out shaky, but full of truth. Fragile. That's what you always wanted me to be. But tell this church, before God and everyone, who sat with our father in those last nights of pain, who washed his wounds, who helped him breathe when he had no strength left. Was it you, or was it me? The silence that followed was deafening. My brothers dropped their eyes for an instant. In that instant, everyone saw what I'd always known. They were never there. Tears ran down my face, but I didn't stop. While you chased parties and paraded your titles, I was caring for him. And that is why he chose me. Not because I am fragile, but because I am strong enough to carry the truth you fear so much. The murmurs rose. Fingers pointed at my brothers. Faces hardened with outrage. Others moved closer to me, eyes full of support. I felt strength swell inside me. And I knew this still wasn't everything. The folder held more. Proof not only to confirm my words, but to reveal secrets they never imagined would surface. I lifted my eyes, drew a breath, and announced, what I've shown so far is only the beginning. There is more, much more, my father left me. And when you see it, there will be no doubt who has told the truth all along. My brothers went pale. In that moment, I realized their fear had finally grown bigger than mine. Chapter 36. I gripped the folder. The church was utterly still, every gaze fixed on me, every breath held. I knew this was the moment to show what they feared most. I drew out a bundle of yellowed letters and an old photograph, raising them for all to see. My father didn't leave only deeds. He left memories, remembrances, truths you never had the courage to tell. These are letters exchanged with people you'd rather forget. I opened the first. My voice shook, but steadied as I read. In this letter, dated March 1990, my father writes to a friend, I'm tired of watching my sons care only about inheritance, while she, the one they call fragile, is the only one who remains faithful at my side. A murmur swept through the church. Faces turned toward my brothers, waiting. Then I held up the photograph of the unknown woman holding a baby, and here is something they never wanted to come to light. My brothers leaped up, shouting in unison, enough. This is an invasion of privacy. It has nothing to do with the inheritance. I didn't back down. It has everything to do with it because it shows who we really were. While you obsessed over appearing perfect, my father kept memories of people he helped, promises he kept, lives that touched his heart. He entrusted me with this because he knew you'd never respect our family's true memory. The priest rose, calling for calm. The congregation buzzed, some indignant, others shocked. I pressed the photo to my chest. This woman, this baby. On the back, my father wrote, she deserves to be remembered. Do you know why? Because he knew you'd try to erase anything that didn't serve the perfect image you invented. But I won't allow his memory to be manipulated. My brothers were pale, sweating. With every word, I saw them shrinking, unable to withstand the tide of eyes turning against them. With tears in my eyes, I ended. The truth you tried to hide is here. My father trusted me, and I will honor that trust to the end. Chapter 37. My brothers were white as wax. The congregation's murmurs swirled around them like a gale, and for the first time, I saw something I'd never seen in them. Fear. The eldest shot to his feet, pointing at me, his voice loud, almost panicked. She's lying. She's always been unstable. Everyone knows it. She's using old papers to manipulate you. She wants to split the family and play the victim. The middle one added, gesturing nervously, it's a hoax. She forged all this to shame us. Don't believe this performance. And the youngest, eyes red with rage, shouted, if our father wanted her to have anything, he would have put it in the will. The rest is just the delusion of a bitter woman. The church erupted in chatter. Some shook their heads in doubt, but most looked outraged at their aggression. Then a strong voice rang out, enough. It was the priest. He stood, raised his arm, and faced everyone. I saw these documents with my own eyes before this gathering. I saw the deed in her name. I saw the words in your father's own hand. Before God, I affirm, there is no lie here. A dense silence blanketed the church. My brothers glanced at each other, speechless. And in that silence, other voices rose. An older family friend stood and said, firm, I remember. She was always at her father's side, while you barely showed up. We all saw it. Another voice from the back, enough pretending. We've known you since you were kids. We know exactly who carried the weight of that house. My eyes filled with tears. For so many years, I had carried silence alone. Now, finally, the town was seeing. And not just seeing, they were speaking. They were defending the truth. My brothers, who had always hidden behind a perfect image, were being unmasked in front of everyone. And for the first time, they had no words to strike back. Chapter 38. I held the papers to my chest and drew a deep breath. My brothers were silent, cornered, and the whole community watched me, waiting for my next words. I knew this was the moment to open my heart, to turn my pain into living truth. My voice came out thick with feeling, but steady. You've known me since I was a girl. You know I was never the daughter who shined, never the one who drew attention. I was the one who stayed home, who cared, who gave things up. While they studied far away, traveled, built their lives, I stayed. I stayed to hold my father's hand when he got sick. I stayed to clean his wounds, to prepare his medicine, to cry alone when his pain felt unbearable. Tears ran down my face, but I didn't step back. I went on. For years, I accepted being invisible. I accepted being called fragile, useless, a burden. I swallowed humiliation in silence because I thought that's all that was left for me. But my father, he saw. He always saw. And that's why he entrusted to me what he trusted to no one else. The true memory of our family. The church was submerged in absolute silence. Some women wiped their eyes. Men who were used to respecting my brothers now lowered their heads, ashamed. I raised the deed, the notebook, and the photograph for all to see. I don't want fortune. I don't want to destroy anyone. I just want justice. I want everyone to know I'm not crazy. I'm not a liar. I'm not a usurper. I am a daughter. I am part of this story. And my father made it clear I should never be forgotten. My voice shook, but it rang strong through the sanctuary. I am the inheritance. He left the inheritance of love, of care, of truth. I heard sobs scattered through the church. A woman murmured, "What an injustice." A man said aloud, "She's right. We all know it." I looked at my brothers. Their faces were pale, eyes red, pride in shreds. And inside me, a knot loosened. This wasn't just about winning a dispute. It was about finally being seen. Chapter 39. When I finished speaking, the church held still for a few seconds that felt eternal. Then a single clap sounded, then another, and another until suddenly the whole sanctuary was on its feet, applauding. The sound echoed off the old walls like a thunderclap of justice. Tears streamed down my face, but this time they weren't from pain, they were from catharsis, from release, courage. "Child," a woman shouted from the back. "Enough injustice." A man cried, clapping hard. The priest added, voice firm, "The truth has been revealed, and no lie can stand in the light." My brothers, however, were paralyzed. The eldest tried to keep his composure, but the color had drained from his face. The middle one stared at the floor, unable to meet the congregation's eyes. The youngest, eyes wet with rage, muttered between his teeth, "This isn't over." But it already was. There was no going back. Those same people who had once whispered on street corners now looked at me with respect. Some came to me, took my hands, offered words of support. "You'll never be alone again. We all saw who you really are." Each gesture, each look, each applause was like a scar being healed. I was no longer the forgotten daughter, the erased sister, the invisible woman. I was someone who had finally claimed her voice before everyone. I glanced at my brothers one last time. They stood there, unmasked, exposed, tasting the same poison they'd poured over me for so many years, public humiliation. But unlike them, I felt no pleasure, only relief. Relief at having honored my father at last, at having shown the truth they tried to bury. And inside me, a certainty was born. The war had just changed sides. Chapter 40. When Mass ended, I felt as if I'd crossed an ocean of pain and finally reached the other shore. The church doors opened and, instead of the scornful looks that had so often followed me, I met outstretched arms, honest embraces, words of support. "You were brave." Someone had to tell the truth. "Your father would be proud of you." Each phrase pulled tears of relief from me, as if the weight of years of silence and humiliation were beginning to come undone. But my brothers couldn't bear the scene. They hurried out, heads down, surrounded by whispers and judging eyes. They were no longer seen as examples, but as men who had tried to erase their own sister. I watched the eldest walk off, face hard, muttering, "This isn't finished." And in that instant I realized the fight wasn't won. They wouldn't accept defeat so easily. Public shame cut them deeper than any document, and I knew they would do everything they could to strike back. That same day, some townspeople came to my home. They offered help, supportive and protection. If they lay a hand on you, they won't be fighting just you. They'll have to face all of us. Those words gave me new strength. For the first time, I wasn't alone. The community that once judged me now became my shield. But that night, alone in my room, unease returned. I knew how my brothers thought. Wounded in their pride, they wouldn't rest until they tried to turn the tide. And then I understood, winning the community's heart was only the beginning. There were still secrets inside those letters and photographs, secrets that could shatter for good the facade they'd built their entire lives. For full justice, I would have to reveal everything. Chapter 41. The days after Mass were unlike anything I'd lived. The town looked at me with respect. Some came to my door to offer help. Others simply greeted me with a smile that said, "We believe you." But my brothers, they were wounded. And I knew they wouldn't keep quiet. By Thursday, rumors started spreading again, that my documents were fake, that I'd hired someone to forge those deeds. Others whispered I was poisoning my father's memory out of revenge. On Saturday, the lie gathered force. My brothers organized a gathering in the main square, calling in a few influential acquaintances, people who owed them favors. There they stood on the bandstand, talking like victims. "Our sister, sadly, has lost her balance," the eldest said, voice feigning sorrow. "We love her, but we can't let her destroy our father's legacy with lies," the middle one added, theatrical. At last, the youngest raised his voice. "Everything she showed is a fabrication. We are the real guardians of this memory." The crowd listened, divided. Some nodded, others whispered. But I could see it clearly. Some still believed them. The mask, though cracked, still clung to a few hearts. I watched from a distance, hidden among the people. Every false word burned inside me. It was humiliation trying to return, injustice trying to reassert itself. But this time I wasn't willing to be silent. I held the folder to my chest and felt tears sting my eyes. Showing part of the truth wasn't enough. I would have to show it all, every detail, every letter, every secret my father had entrusted to me, because that was the only way to tear the masks off for good. Chapter 42. I went home with my heart on fire. My brother's lies rang in my ears, trying to wound me, to erase me again. But this time, they didn't have the same effect. This time, I was ready. I sat at the table and opened the folder once more. I spread out the documents, the letters, the photographs. Each page was a piece of the truth my father had given me. And at the bottom of the box, I found an envelope I hadn't had the courage to open. It was sealed, my name written by hand, "For my daughter, when the time comes." My eyes filled, my heart raced. This was it, what my father had saved for last. With trembling hands, I broke the seal. Inside was a long letter, written in the firm handwriting I knew so well. "My daughter, I know the weight I place in your hands is heavy, but I trusted no one else, because you were the only one who never abandoned me. Your brothers always chased appearances, titles, and possessions. But you were my presence, my comfort, my quiet strength. They wouldn't understand, but you will. The true inheritance is not in money, nor in land. It is in memory, in dignity, in the courage to face injustice. If one day they try to erase you, remember this letter. Remember that I saw you, I chose you, because you are my living inheritance." Tears streamed down my face. Each word felt like an embrace from the past, a balm for every wound I had carried in silence. I held the letter against my heart. Injustice had wounded me, yes, but the answer was here. I was not invisible. I was the chosen one. I was the guardian of the truth my father wanted to preserve. And in that moment, I decided I would reveal this letter before everyone. It would be the end of the charade, the end of the lie, the end of the humiliation. The next day, before the whole town, I would show not only documents and photographs. I would bring my father's voice. I would show them the choice he made. And with that, I would free not only myself, but his very memory. Chapter 43. The bandstand in the town square was full that Sunday. My brothers, confident in their performance, were already speaking loudly, repeating the same lies, that I was unbalanced, that I wanted to tarnish our father's memory, that it was all an invention. But this time, I didn't stay in the shadows. I climbed the steps slowly, the folder pressed to my chest, my heart racing. When I reached the top, I turned to the crowd and raised my hand for silence, and, as if by a miracle, the noise ceased. My voice came out firm. They can say what they want. They can call me crazy, a liar, jealous. But there's one thing no one can deny: my father's voice. And that voice is here. I opened the folder and pulled out the sealed envelope. I showed it to everyone before breaking the seal. He wrote this letter to me. He kept it until the end of his days. And today, in front of you all, I will read every word. The silence was absolute. My brothers shifted uneasily, as if trying to stop the inevitable. The eldest took a step forward, but the crowd stopped him with hard stares. I opened the letter with trembling hands and began to read. Each sentence echoed across the square like thunder. My daughter, you were my presence, my comfort, my quiet strength. Your brothers chased appearances, but you stayed, and for that, I entrusted you with my true inheritance: memory, dignity, courage. If they ever try to erase you, remember this letter. You are my living inheritance. Tears streamed down my face as I read. When I finished, I raised the letter for all to see. Here is the truth. My father saw me, my father chose me, and nothing they say can erase that. The crowd erupted in emotional murmurs. Some cried, others applauded. My brothers, pale, had no words left. Their mask had been shattered by the one thing they couldn't contest: our father's own written voice. And I, with the letter pressed to my chest, felt for the first time in my life that I was no longer invisible. Chapter 44. The square felt suspended in the air. The wind tugged at the flags on the bandstand, but no one moved. All eyes were fixed on my brothers, waiting for a response. The eldest tried to speak, but no sound came. His face was flushed, sweat dripping from his forehead. The middle one stared at the ground, unable to meet the crowd's eyes. And the youngest, overcome with rage, shouted, "This proves nothing. It's just a letter, words with no value." But his voice rang hollow, lost against the force of what everyone had just heard. An elderly woman, who had known my father since he was young, stood up and answered in a loud tone. I recognize his handwriting. And more than that, everyone here knows it was she who stayed by his side until the very end. You were never there. The crowd exploded with indignant murmurs. A man added, "You talk about inheritance, but you abandoned your own father. She was the one who cared for him. She's the one who deserves to be remembered." My brothers turned even paler. The eldest tried to speak again, but every attempt was drowned out by the voices of the people, their reproach too strong to fight. I stood still, in silence, with the letter pressed to my chest. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to insist. The truth was already there, alive, before everyone. My brothers, once arrogant and proud, stepped down from the bandstand with their heads bowed, defeated, carrying the weight of their own shame. And for the first time, I saw them taste the same poison they had forced on me for so many years: public humiliation. But unlike them, I felt no pleasure, only relief. Justice, at last, had begun to be fulfilled. And deep in my heart, a certainty grew: the next step would be complete freedom. Chapter 45. The square. Once the stage of my humiliation, had become the setting of my liberation. People came to me, touched my hands, wiped my tears as if they were their own. In the eyes of the community, I saw not only compassion but respect, the respect I had been denied all my life. My brothers, defeated, slipped away in silence. No more speeches, no more masks to hide behind. Their lies had finally been shattered in the light of truth. I looked to the sky and let the wind dry my face. In that moment, I didn't just see clouds, I saw my father's gaze, as if he were smiling somewhere beyond time. I whispered softly, "I did it, Father. I honored your memory. I carried out the truth you entrusted to me." I returned home with lighter steps, so different from all the days I had carried the weight of shame. When I opened the door, I realized: the box, the papers, the notebook, yes, they mattered. But what had truly changed was something inside me. I was no longer the forgotten daughter, no longer the erased woman. I was the keeper of a story, the living inheritance of a man who saw in me the strength no one else wanted to see. I sat on the porch with the letter on my lap and let silence surround me, not the silence of oppression, but of peace. A silence that said, justice had been done. And in that moment, I understood that my fight had not been just for me. It was for all women who had ever been silenced, humiliated, erased. It was for every voice dismissed, every life deemed worthless. I lifted my eyes and thought, If someone hears my story, may they find courage in it. May they know that even when the world tries to extinguish their light, truth will always find a way to shine. And so, with a free heart, I understood that the greatest inheritance my father left me was not written on paper. It was etched in me. If this story touched you, leave your like, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more exciting videos like this one.